Hello, everyone. Okay, if I can just quickly ask that you put your mics off just in case there's any background noise, that'd be greatly appreciated. And if you can turn your cameras on, because it's actually so nice when I can actually speak to people rather than speak to myself. Thank you. We'll just wait a little bit longer. I do know that we've still got a couple more coming, whether they jump in or not. I know some can't, but we'll just wait a little bit longer and then we'll get started. It's so nice to see familiar faces. Liz, I don't know what your camera is doing, but your camera is like...
I don't know either. That's really weird.
Oh my God, it's completely gone. If yours doesn't work, that's fine. You can turn it off.
Oh, there we go. Oh.
Okay. This is my first attempt at actually presenting a slideshow tonight. So I apologize if we have some technical issues. But firstly, thank you so much for taking the time to jump on tonight. We are going to go over everything to do with different styles of learning, because I know that most of you are either uni students or school students. So just as a quick little starter so I can catch up as to where everyone is, can we just drop into the chat box? I'll open mine up so I can actually see it. Drop into the chat box. Are you a school student? Are you a uni student? If so, what year are you in? What are you studying? All of those things. I didn't know that, Sarah. I assumed that anyway. Year 11, year 12. Susie, are you in year 12? I thought you'd finished school. Studying law, politics. Wow. Fourth year radiation, nearly done. Year 11. And TAFE. Wow, you're juggling. I don't know how you do that. Okay. So cool. So we're all on very different stages in our studying, which is amazing because it means that some of you may already be familiar with your learning style. Some of you may still be learning your learning style. And the best thing, and one of the things that I absolutely love the most about running masterclasses and group things, is that I'm actually bringing girls together. So you're more than welcome to share your tips, tricks, those things that you've picked up along the way to help each other out. That way we can all learn from each other, which I'm a big believer in. Okay, now let's see if I can actually share my screen. Let me know if it doesn't work. Oh. Okay, can you guys see that? Just give me a thumbs up or something because I can't see the chat anymore. Perfect. Okay. So obviously tonight is the study sesh, and it is all about your study habits, being able to balance your life, your school, your studies, all those things. We're going to also touch on motivation. We're going to touch on organization, because organization is absolutely my favorite thing ever. And then any questions you guys have throughout the night, just drop them in the chat box and I will either speak to it as a group, or I'll pop it in, I'll pop my response as a chat. But yeah, feel free to ask as many questions as you like and use the chat as much as you like. Oh, that's not great. We're already off to a flying start. Okay, just some housekeeping that I always like to do at the start of my sessions, please be present. And if you're unable to be present in terms of like fully engaged in this and interacting with other people, then just turn off your screen so that we're not disrupting each other, because it's just common courtesy really, that if you're going to be here and be present and engaged. Second thing, engage in the chat. The more we can chat to each other, the more we can learn from each other. The more open you are, the more I'm able to help you, all those things. Phones away. I know that sounds so like trivial, but it's just always nice that if I'm talking to you guys and I can actually see you, that phones are away, and I know then once again you're being present and engaged. Cameras on so I can see your beautiful faces, because I love being able to talk to people. I find it very awkward when I can only see myself and I'm talking to myself. And then microphones off just in case there's any background noise, and that's just kind of like chaotic and all that. So that's just general house rules. But yeah, pretty straightforward. Okay. So before we get started, I just want you to take a moment to think about how you study at the moment. Pretty much. How are you studying? Do you take notes? Do you listen to content? Do you highlight? Do you avoid it altogether? How do you currently study and how do you currently learn? If you can just pop it in the chat. And there's no right or wrong to this. It's just honestly whatever you do at the moment. This is really going to annoy me. If I go like small screen, so I can't see any of your chat. I don't have study social. I can't avoid it altogether. Summarize, highlight, take notes. Yep. Take notes and highlight. Yep. Okay. So a lot of you are very similar in the sense that you're taking notes, highlighting, definitely be on notes, trying to summarize. Yep. Cool. Okay. I don't study very often, only when I have assignments. Yep. That was me too. Okay, so based on this, a lot of you are just taking notes, summarizing, using highlighters, all the kind of standard things that we are taught in terms of study habits at school. So tonight we're actually going to delve into different ways of studying, and we're going to align your learning style to your study habits. So in a nutshell, there are 5 learning styles. And the reason we have learning styles is because we all learn differently. And unfortunately, it's something that we're not exactly taught at school. We're not taught how we learn. We're just given content and it's assumed that we will learn however it is given to us, which is actually totally incorrect. There are different learning styles and we all learn differently. You may be more dominant in terms of one learning style, or you might be a mixture of some, okay? And the reason that we want to know learning styles is because it's how you learn best. It's how you're going to retain knowledge the easiest. It's going to be the most efficient way for you to learn, okay? If I look this way, it's because I'm looking at my notes so I don't forget anything. Okay, so the first learning style we're going to look at tonight is a kinesthetic learner. And now with a kinesthetic learner, it's learning through hands-on, okay? And I've got a little picture here. It tells you like study habits and characteristics. I'm going to go over all that anyway, but kinesthetic learners, they learn best from being hands-on, doing it, and actually being like a part of the process and applying the learning in a really tactile way, okay? So the characteristics of a kinesthetic learner are people who like to move around a lot. So if you're someone who moves and is typically very active, you might learn best from, I don't know, walking and listening to something, or having regular brain breaks, being quite active. You also might like to be very involved in like problem solving and that kind of thing. They're usually characteristics of a kinesthetic learner. Now, with a kinesthetic learner, whilst they're going to learn best from not only like doing whilst the learning is happening, so like hands-on, your study habits should also mimic that as well. So if you need to be walking around while listening to your lecture, then sitting down and writing notes isn't necessarily going to be the best study habit for you. Okay, so things that you might like to look at is whether you can turn your learning into like a game-based activity, which I know that sometimes in uni, and that isn't always the best way, or isn't always easy to do, but being able to say, apply your learning to a game-based activity, taking regular movement breaks can be really efficient, giving your body the chance to actually move and clear your mind. And then ultimately it's actually to apply what you've learned in context. So for example, like Sarah and myself who are, sorry, I'm just going to let someone in. For Sarah and myself who are teachers, whilst we're sitting there at a uni lecture being told how to teach, if you're a kinesthetic learner, you're actually not going to learn how to teach until you get in the classroom and you start applying it and you start doing it. So for me, I was a kinesthetic learner. You can tell me all the information in the world, but I'm someone who I need to actually implement it and do it. And I guess for those who play sports, it's like when your coach tells you a drill. They might sit there and explain it to you and point at the dots and tell you where to go. But until you've actually physically done that drill, it's not going to be concrete in your mind. You won't learn that skill until you're physically doing it. So that is how kinesthetic learners learn best. They learn best from actually doing the thing, doing the learning, putting it in action and implementing it in a way that they can then, I guess, when they do it, it's then stuck in their brain, like they've created that pathway in their brain to learn it. Okay, does that make sense? Are there any questions on kinesthetic learners? Nope. Cool. Okay, the next one is a visual learner. Now, visual learners, it's very obvious because it's in the word visual learner. They learn best when they can actually visually see their learning. So that could be things like using diagrams, charts, watching videos, looking at images, like you're visually seeing your learning. And when you're able to see it, that's when you're able to retain the knowledge. Often you'll hear people say like photographic memory, so they can actually see something and then they remember it because they can see it in their mind. That would be a characteristic of a visual learner. Now, some of the characteristics of a visual learner is that they like to read. Sorry. I was on the wrong one. Characteristics of a visual learner. If you are someone who is sitting there listening to a lecturer and your mind starts to wander and there's nothing for you to look at, that is a characteristic that you could be a visual learner because you're not absorbing what the person's actually saying is going in one ear and out the other. Okay. Often they like to read and they show quite intense like concentration when they are reading. Visual learners do, because they're actually absorbing whilst visually looking at what's going on. And like I said earlier, like you enjoy learning through looking at diagrams, charts, those kind of things. So in terms of then a study habit, if you are someone who is a visual learner, you're not going to be sitting there listening to a lecture whilst walking around, because that's actually not going to be the best practice for you to learn. You're going to be finding different ways that you can turn your learning into, say, graphic organizers, mind maps, images. You might get, like, instead of just listening to what they're saying, you might need to Google images that give a representation of that, okay? So you want to be thinking like, how can I turn my learning into something I can see, pretty much, if you're a visual learner. Highlighters can also be a good one if you're a visual learner, because obviously the color is going to make that learning stand out, and you're going to then associate whatever color that information is, you're going to associate that, and it's going to be concrete in your brain. Okay, so that's the profile and the study habits of a visual learner. If I'm going too fast, feel free just to slow me down. And if you have any questions, like I said, chuck it in there. So after visual learner, we have an auditory learner. And once again, it's in the name. They learn from listening. That's how they learn best. So where a visual learner needs to see diagrams and that kind of thing, or images and pictures and charts and graphs and all those really visual things, an auditory learner is going to learn best by being able to listen. So they're the people who might be able to just put in a podcast and absorb all the information. They're going to be able to sit there in a lecture and just absorb everything. They don't need to write notes. They just remember things. Okay. And wouldn't we all love to be able to just be like that, like just to listen and just absorb it and it be there? So the characteristics of an auditory learner are people who prefer spoken directions. So if you prefer instructions given to you verbally, that's usually an indicator that you are an auditory learner. You can actually just listen and absorb and then go and do. When you read, this is a really interesting one. When you're reading information, you actually need to read it slightly out loud or at a whisper for you to actually comprehend what you're reading. And I know personally that's me. If I'm reading something to learn, I actually have to read it out loud so that I can hear it, and then I'm more inclined to actually retain that information. You usually can't concentrate when there's noise. Obviously, that's a very given one, because if there's noise, it's going to take away from you being able to hear and absorb the learning. So you like to study in, say, like a quiet place. You don't like to be disrupted or anything. And often you'll talk out loud to yourself. I know I'm like a shocker for this. I like to talk to myself. I talk myself through things. Like often Brady be like, are you talking to me or are you talking to yourself? Because I'll be like cooking dinner and I'll just be talking the process out aloud. So I'm an auditory person. Any questions on that? Oh, I haven't got to study habits. Sorry. So in terms of the study habits, you would be listening to like podcasts. You might like to have quiet music in the background. You might just like silence altogether. You might actually like to read your notes out loud and record yourself, like do an audio recording and then listen to it back. So that way you're able to absorb it that way. So they're kind of the study habits of, say, an auditory learner.
Anything you enjoy doing outside of study?
Sorry, Jess, were you asking a question or was it just?
No, there was background noises. So sorry.
That's okay, not a problem. Okay. Next one. This is the one that most people, can I just ask, when I have like my meeting chat there, can you actually see what's behind it or not? Can you see that? Like, can you see the chat on my screen or can you just see the presentation? Just a presentation? I think I saw it. Yeah, cool. Okay. So this is the most common one that people just assume that they are. And I think that's, I know that's because this is the study habits that we are often taught at school. So most people lean towards studying and learning just by reading and writing, which are known as read and writer learners or reading and writing learners. Okay. If you are actually a reading and a writing learner, which not too many of us are, you learn best just by reading the information and then by writing it. And I think that there's a really, how would I word it? It's like most people assume that they are this, so they study with these habits, but they're actually not reading and writing. They don't learn best from reading and writing. It's just that that's the way they've been taught, which is why then we often talk about kids, uni students, people that are struggling with their studies. It's not because they're struggling. It's actually because the way that the learning is being delivered is actually not suited to them. And that is something that I think education is still missing. We're not teaching to the learning needs of our individual children or students, okay? Which is then why uni students and high school students are having to take it upon themselves to then learn about their own learning style, and then they have to try and work out how they can change the information they're receiving to make it fit them. So because you've done reading and writing studies for the last couple of years doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually best practice for you. It doesn't mean that that's actually the easiest way that you would learn. It's just that that's because that's what we've all been told we should be doing. Okay. So like I said, reading and writing learners, they will learn best from reading about their information and then writing about it. Okay. And the characteristics of a reading, writing learner is that they would prefer to actually learn by themselves. They would prefer to take themselves to somewhere and actually read the content by themselves rather than have someone tell them it. Okay. They would prefer to write their material than have someone tell them the material. They often like written instructions. So rather than someone just telling you what you need to do, they would rather have it written down in a list or written down. Okay. And then just some other little characteristics. It's like they usually prefer written feedback on how they've been. They usually prefer reading in their spare time, those kind of things. So of course, if you are a reading and writing learner, which you possibly could be, you will learn best from reading about the material on your own. You're going to learn through maybe flashcards, writing things out on flashcards and then rereading them to yourself. You're going to learn from writing notes, those kind of things. Okay. Are there any questions on that? Nope. Okay. So I now want you to think about it. This is a little bit of like, throughout this, I'm not someone who's just going to give you the information and tell you what to do. I actually want to give you the information and then for you to work it out for yourself. So I want you to take a moment now. How do you feel after listening to all of those that you learn best? Do you think you're kinesthetic and learn by doing? Do you learn by reading and writing? Do you learn by listening? Do you learn by seeing or watching? And if you need clarification on anything, just ask, because I would rather clarify. Once you've kind of worked out which learner you think you might be, just chuck it in the chat for me. Listening and visual. Yeah, and like I said, you actually might not just be one. You could be a little bit of both. Like I know I'm auditory and kinesthetic. I like in a meeting, everyone's taking notes and I just sit there and listen because there's no point me taking notes. Reading, writing, and visual. Yep. Sorry, I didn't even finish my story. So whilst I listen in meetings, I then actually need to do hands-on things. Like I just can't learn a netball drill by watching it. I have to do it. Visual and kinesthetic, yeah. A combination of all. Love that for you. Yeah. And yeah, like visual, auditory, reading and writing, they usually would go in hand because when you think about it, with even the visual aspect of it, you have to write. You do have to write like your maps and that kind of thing. You still have to read and interpret graphs. Visual and kinesthetic. Yeah, cool. So lots of visual and kinesthetics. Okay, perfect. So we're now moving on from the learning styles. Do you all feel like you now have a better understanding of not only your learning style, but maybe the study habits that you should be implementing that will help you to learn better? Cool. Okay. Now we're going into more of my favorite stuff. So we're also hitting mindset as well, Shannon, because it would not be my masterclass if I wasn't hitting mindset. That's my passion. Okay. So we're now going to look at motivation and stress management, because that's a huge part of the studying process, is actually one, being motivated to do it, and then two, managing the stress so that you can get through it efficiently. Okay. So unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, motivation isn't long-lived, and motivation isn't actually going to get you to your end goal. We all wish that it would. If motivation could get us to our end goal, we would achieve so many more goals, honestly. Motivation is what gets you started towards your goal, and then it's actually discipline that's going to get you to your goal, okay? So like I've said here, motivation isn't long-lived. It's the routines and the habits that you build that will help you achieve your goals. Motivation is the driving force to start. And when you are motivated, that is the time to set your big goals and plan how you will achieve them. Okay. So essentially, motivation gets you started. Then it's going to be the discipline, the routines, and the habits that you create that become automatic and will actually help you to achieve your goals. When you are motivated, though, this is what a lot of people forget. When you are motivated, that is the time to set your big goals, because that's when you're like creative. That's when you're excited. That's when you want all the things. And so many people set such small goals for themselves. And it's like, no, when you're motivated, like dream big, shoot for the stars, honestly, because once you've got that big goal in place of whatever it is that you want, you've got the motivation to start you. But while you have that motivation, you'll also be able to think about, well, how am I actually going to get there? What are the small steps? What are the small goals to get there? Okay. Okay. And then stress management is just a combination of organization and self-care practices, really. Okay. When you think about it, stress usually comes because we are unorganized. So we're putting pressure on ourselves. And we've completely forgotten to actually prioritize ourselves and care about our needs. Okay. So that is, in a nutshell, what stress management is. We're actually now going to look at the stress management strategies, pretty much organization. Although I have in my notes a couple of strategies that you can use that I haven't put into the slide. So when you are feeling stressed, the best thing that you can do in that moment is actually just stop. And I've got a breathing technique, and you may or may not know it. It's the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And it is designed to calm your central nervous system. Hence why it's a good one when you're stressed. So it's you breathe in for 4, you hold your breath for 7, and you slowly release for 8. And then you repeat that a couple of times. And with that 4-7-8 pattern, it helps to calm your central nervous system, which is then going to allow your brain to think effectively and efficiently. Because when we're in stress, my brain automatically goes to like when I'm teaching year ones about stress. So I'll just like give you guys the same principle. So our brain is pretty much like broken up into different parts. And so in our brain, you've got your wise owl, which is your decision making. You've then got your sifting sooty, which is at the back here. And that's like the part that, like this part here of your brain sorts all the information. Then you've got your something elephant in here, which is like your memory and all of like that's where your learning part of your brain is there. It retains all of the information. And then also in the back here, you have your guard dog. Now, your guard dog is your fight or flight. That's your stress kind of part of the brain. So when you become stressed because you're unorganized, you're not caring about yourself, your guard dog, your stress, it actually grows so big and it starts to block off the pathways for the part of the brain that thinks about the decisions you're making, for the learning that you need to like pull out, or your ability to be able to sort through information. Okay. So in being able to shrink that little guard dog down and get rid of the stress again means that it opens up the pathways between all of the other parts of the brain. So you're actually allowed to think clearly, make decisions, and retain knowledge. So you can see that when we're in why when we're in a stress state, we actually don't have the capacity to learn. It literally blocks off the parts of the brain so that you can't learn, or so that you can't make good choices. Okay. So the 4-7-8 calms the central nervous system, which sends that guard dog down, which then opens up all the other pathways in the brain. I would tell you the real names of the brain, but I can't remember them. So hence they're just animals. Okay. So you've got the 4-7-8 breathing technique. The next thing I would suggest you do is actually create a plan. So I'm stressed about this. What am I actually going to do to get me to what I need to do? So if I have an assignment due that's 2,000 words long and it's due on the weekend, how can I break that up so that it is not a stressful situation? I can achieve it in manageable tasks and I'm going to still complete it. So put a plan into place. The reason you have to do the breathing first is because, like I said, if your brain isn't communicating to each other, you're not going to be able to create an effective plan that's actually going to get the job done. And then once you've done your priorities and you've worked out your plan, focus on one thing at a time. Because often when we are stressed and we are overwhelmed, it's because we're trying to do a million things at one time. And then all of a sudden you're running around in circles and you're like, holy shit, where do I actually start? So if you were to stop, look at your plan and go, okay, first thing I need to do is actually this. And then you go and you just focus on that one thing. Don't worry about the rest, just do the first thing. Okay. And then once the first thing's done, then you move on to the second thing. And that way, that big, overwhelming assessment that was 2,000 words has now been broken up into 500 words over 5 days or 4 days. Then it's much more, it's so much more manageable. And then all of a sudden the stress is taken out of it, all because you've done one step at a time. Okay. So stress management really is basic stuff. It is honestly basic. Once you start to nail those basic practices, then your life's going to become a whole lot easier. Sorry, I need water. Oh, I went backwards. Okay. Let's become organized queens. This is actually what I'm known for. I love organization. This is like my place. Love it. Absolutely love it. So I want to know, how do you currently organize your study life? Let me know in the chat. What are your organizing practices or strategies that you have? It's okay if you don't. That's totally fine. Oh, she's on it. Wow, you're more organized than I was at uni. Monthly calendar, assessment tracker, and a weekly calendar. Yeah, done within the order of due weekly planner. Yeah. Don't have many, just an assessment tracker. Yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Sounds weird, but I have a family planner with all my subjects and assessments on it. So I know. That is the best. I've never thought of that. That's funny. Like an actual family planner? Set aside certain days, but only when assessments. Is it actually a family planner? Can I see it?
Yeah, it sounds really weird, but it is a literal family planner, and I'm on the wrong month at the moment because I was checking some stuff out. But where you would normally put all of your names, I put all of my subject codes.
That is such a brilliant idea.
My dates in, so it's like the whole month is right in front of me, and I don't have to like flick between pages. And like all of the dates will have like highlights on it. Yeah. And then like all of like I have so many placement blocks, I can put all of my placement blocks in it, and it just means it's right there.
That is such a smart idea. I would never have thought of that at all. That's very clever. Set aside certain days, but only when assessments is your monthly calendar. Yep. Just procrastinate until the last day. That's like my fear. That is like my worst. I cannot. I don't know how you do that. I live by weekly planner, but love your idea. Yeah, that's a really good idea. The month. Yeah. You know what's funny though is like you guys have all given me a study once, but like how do you organize your life? Like, do you bring it together, or do you just plan your organizing and like your studying? All together. Okay. Love that you all have things in place. Except Rosie, we'll give you some things to do. Don't worry. We will definitely give you some strategies. I don't know how I'm not someone that can leave things to the last day. Like that is like my anxiety, honestly, my anxiety. Like, once again, sorry to bring it back to teaching, but everyone's like, oh, who's done their reports? I've finished my reports like 3 weeks before they're due because I'm just like get them done. Like, cannot stand things being left to the last moment. Okay. So here are some organizational tools. These are ones that I personally use. And ones that I've had success with. So take and leave what you want. Obviously, all the ideas here for you, open to more ideas. Would never have thought of a family planner as an organizational tool, but absolutely froth that idea. So create routines. That is one thing that I'm huge on. Like, cannot bang on about routines enough. Now, the way you do your routine is very individualized. You might be someone who needs like very structured routine. So it's like at 7 a.m. I wake up, at 7:30 I have breakfast, at 8 o'clock I'm at the gym, at da-da-da. So if you're someone like that, that's totally cool. However, for some people, they can't necessarily be on a dead set time frame like that. So instead of being like, get up at 7 a.m., which I used to be that person, I used to be so like bang, bang, bang. I'm now a little bit more free. So what I've been calling it is more of like a scaffold. I have more of a scaffold routine. So whilst I have my non-negotiables and the things that I do every single morning, I'm not so regimented in bang, bang, bang. This is how it goes. I have a scaffold. I wake up somewhere between 6 and 7. And then depending on what time I wake up, usually 45 minutes later, I get myself to the gym. And then roughly an hour at the gym, and then I come home and then I will have coffee, breakfast, and journal. So I have like a rough scaffold of the time frames that I do things, but I don't have like a set structure with my routine anymore, because that for me just wasn't working. I wasn't committing to those times, and I wanted a bit more flexibility and freedom. So a scaffold is more applicable for me. I know, talking to a couple of clients about this, my clients who have ADHD, they prefer a scaffold because for them, it's like having a bit of a choice. They don't want to have to do certain things at a certain time. They want to have a bit more freedom and choice. And that's something I'd never considered, like having ADHD. I always thought, well, all of my students have always loved a set structure and routine, but obviously as they get older, they just want a little bit more flexibility and freedom. Okay, so that's something to consider in terms of your routines. What I would suggest though is that have your non-negotiables. What are your non-negotiables every single day that you have to do, and where do they fit into your day? Okay. The next one is calendars, weekly calendars, monthly calendars, yearly calendars, all the things, all calendars. How you do your calendars, totally up to you. To-do lists, I love a good to-do list just to like map everything out, get everything off my brain dump it, like get it all out. Sticky notes are a good one because you can just quickly do them on the go and you can move them. Ooh, set boundaries for yourself. Who is good at setting boundaries? Are any of you good at setting boundaries? No, I can't see people who don't have their cameras on, but okay. Don't stress. I wasn't good at setting boundaries either. Now I am. You learn to set boundaries because when you are organized, oh, a new message. Personally not, but I have reason. Yeah. Okay. So setting boundaries for yourself is one of the hardest boundaries to set, because it's kind of easy to set boundaries with other people because you have to do them. Like you have to, if you say to someone no, you have to stick by that because you've said it. Whereas when you set boundaries for yourself, for some reason we're kind of like, oh, but like, you know, I can just do that a little bit later because like I will get to it. But then it's like, no, have accountability. If I said that I'm getting up at 7 a.m., get up at 7 a.m. Have integrity and get up at 7 a.m. If you set a boundary for yourself, make sure you do it. Have the accountability for it. It's so much harder to stick to your own boundaries than it is to stick to boundaries that you've set for other people. Okay. And then planners, I'm all for a good planner and or phone reminders. So they are like a blessing, especially for appointments when you've like booked it a month ago and you're not going to remember it. So phone reminders are the best. And I don't think I have anything else underneath that. Okay, here are my secrets. Let me just move that. I can't see it. Get out of the way. Okay. So my secrets for study and work: organize tasks in order of importance on a calendar or a whiteboard. And what I mean by that is I used to have like a monthly calendar, and I literally just printed on white paper, and I used to put all of my assessment tasks in. And then what I would do is I would look at what assessment task is due first, how much does it weigh, how many words is it, and then I would organize it in terms of priority. Which one do I need to get done first? Okay. So then once I've done that part and done like the thinking about it, I then set deadlines. So for me, a non-negotiable is that my assessments, anything I create has to be done 2 to 3 days before it is due. That's edited, everything. Like it has to be done. Okay. Wow, I realized my ring light is very bright tonight. It has to be done. Okay. So 2 to 3 days before it's due. With the start date, the start date has to be no later than 2 weeks in advance. And I know some people will be like, holy shit, that's like a long time. But no, it has to be done 2 weeks in advance. That gives you, when I say 2 weeks in advance, I mean 2 weeks in advance of when it is due. So if it is due on, say, Monday the 20th, then I would have to start that assessment 2 weeks. No, sorry. If it's due, say, the 20th, that means it has to be completed on the 17th, which means I have to start that task 2 weeks before the 17th. And that is a non-negotiable. That was a non-negotiable for me. It has to be started no later than 2 weeks in advance. Sometimes I give myself 3 weeks or a month. Okay. The next thing is break your tasks up into chunks, like I spoke about earlier. When we're prioritizing just small things at a time, it reduces our stress management. It reduces our stress. It is stress management. So break it up into smaller chunks. And then, of course, set time aside each day for you to complete just a chunk of that task. So it doesn't need to be that you sit there for 3 hours and do the assessment, which is what most of us do because we leave the assessment, the start date of the assessment, too late. If we start 2 weeks in advance, we look at how we can break it up. We look at how we can break all of our assessments up. We can go, okay, I realistically only need to spend an hour here and there working on that particular assessment, which makes it much more manageable. Okay. Are there any questions on any of those? No. Cool. And then here's my secret to life. Okay. So in terms of organizing your life, and when I mean organizing your life, I don't mean like get your shit together. I just mean balancing your life and your school or your studies or your work or whatever it is. It's hard. Like there is no easy way around it. It's something that's really difficult to do. So these are just some things that I do to make sure I'm balancing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect at it, but these are some things that I did or do to balance work, study, life. Okay. So I write all important events on the calendar that has my assessments and my work commitments on it. So I make sure everything is central. It's all in one spot. That way I'm not sifting through lots of different things and having lots of different calendars and accidentally overlapping. Everything is in one place. I used to use like a print off one, but now I just use Google Calendar because you can actually also set reminders as well. So now it's like all really centralized. Something I still do is set reminders in my phone at least an hour before. So if I have an appointment or I'm catching up with a friend or something like that, I always set a reminder in my phone, because I have done it. I've actually been so busy that I accidentally forgot to go to a friend's engagement party. So setting reminders is important, because life does get busy. You don't mean to do those things, but it does happen. Okay. I also use a monthly/weekly journal to set my intentions for the week. And I don't just set business or work intentions, I set personal intentions as well. And my intentions could be just to call a friend. Like, they don't have to be big things. It could be as simple as call a friend, text this person, go to the gym 3 times, drink enough water. Like, your intentions don't have to be big. But if you set your intentions, you've actually got something to keep yourself accountable for. It's like setting your own boundaries. And then prioritize self-care or downtime weekly. I'm going to go a little bit further into self-care down the slides, but it is something that often we just chuck away to the side and completely forget about, because we are so busy. But what we forget is that self-care is part of stress management. And if we want to do things well and efficient, then we actually need to prioritize ourselves so that we have the capacity to be able to put everything into our studies, or to have a clear mind when we are studying. Self-care. Here we go. Okay, so I'd like to know, what do you all do for self-care? Or what are your standard self-care practices at the moment? Totally okay if you don't have any. Yeah. What do you do on your break days and arvos? Do you just like chill or go for walks? What do you actually do during that time? Sorry, I should be more specific. What tasks do you do for self-care? Yeah. Oh, I love that list. Music and read. Don't really have anything that I can think of. There would definitely be something you're just actually not aware that it is self-care. Like exercise is a form of self-care. Listening to podcasts, like talking to friends, is a form of self-care. Skincare, weekly reads. Yeah, it's so easy to fall out of that habit. Yeah, move my body into my walk with no headphones in. Yes, walking with no headphones in is a game changer. Facial treatments, cooking. Yes, I love cooking, dancing, listening to music. Yeah. Good. So you're all doing some form. There'll be so many as well that you're actually not aware of. Walking or calling family and friends. Yeah. There'll be so many that you're actually not aware of that you're doing, because as you'll find out, self-care is very simple. Okay. But you can't achieve all your goals if you don't prioritize yourself. I've learned that firsthand. You actually cannot do it if you do not prioritize yourself. You burn out significantly, and it then takes you a long time to get back on track. Okay. So learn from my mistakes. Don't burn out. Prioritize yourself. Okay. So in the simplest way, self-care needs to be practiced daily. Okay. And it doesn't have to be major things that you do. It can be your really simple, basic things that you do to look after your mental, emotional, and physical well-being. So can you just write a quick list of all the self-care things that you do? And there's a reason for why I want you to do this. So literally just list everything you can think of. Once you have written that list down of everything you can think of, I now want you to look at your list and think about where can I add it into my day. Now, when I'm actually looking like at the things that you guys are already doing, especially Sarah, I can already see that you're putting it into your day already. So I want those who have things that they maybe do once in a while, or Liz has her gratitude journal every day, yeah, or every night. Think about where can I actually put it into my everyday routine, whether it be in your morning routine or your night routine. So for me, just for those who are stuck, it's like my self-care is in the mornings, it's if the sun is out, which it is not, a sunshine walk with a coffee. That for me is self-care. No music, no nothing. I literally just walk with phone away, coffee and sun. Because for me, I get seasonal depression, serious seasonal depression. So sunshine is my happiness. It brings so much joy. Sunshine, it's so easy. Sunshine walk with coffee. That's it. In winter, it's a little more difficult. It's a coffee with journaling. So every morning I have to either walk, journal, meditate, and any of those three things, probably not meditate, but the other two have to involve a coffee because that is my happiness. So simple. Another self-care practice is as simple as eating nutritious food. It's looking after your physical well-being, prioritizing water. We very much overthink self-care, and we are nearly at the point now where this whole that girl has romanticized things so far that we're actually forgetting to do the basic things, like drink water. That's your number one self-care. Eat good food. Number two, sleep is number three. That is self-care. Moving your body, self-care. Okay. Oh, I jumped the gun and shared mine. My self-care list, just if you need any ideas, is daily movement, nutritious food. I said 8 to 9. I'm actually 9 to 10, but I was giving myself a little bit of a grace period there. So 8 to 9 hours of sleep. Journaling is every day. Skincare is every day. Guided meditation, hit and miss. Breakfast and coffee dates, and sunshine walks. I love a brekkie date. Okay. So self-care for the days that you're feeling down. This is something that I love doing. I kind of took the mick out of that girl and romanticizing those things, but I do romanticize things on the days that I'm feeling down. Okay. And I have my self-care list, but then I also have a list of things that make me smile. And the things that I've got on my list that make me smile are things that bring me from my sad, depressive state into a feel good kind of state. Okay. So I also want you to have not only your self-care list and the routine, but I actually want you to think of a list and write all the things down that make you smile. Okay. So that on the days where you're feeling unbalanced, you're lacking motivation, you're stressed, or you're just down, you actually can pick one of these things to do to pull you back up. So mine is baking. Anything to do with baking instantly puts a smile on my face. I love it. It's so wholesome. It makes me feel so good. So if I'm ever sad, that is the first thing I do is bake. My other one is beach walks, but that just isn't a thing here. So this can be really hard because often we forget to do things that make us smile. Whilst this list is a self-care list for the days that you're feeling down or out and that kind of thing, it can be really powerful to actually pick one of these things to do every week, because it sets time aside that focuses on something that you love doing and that brings you joy, which in our life we don't do often. We're usually working or studying, or, I mean, sport brings joy, but sometimes it feels like a chore, or you're at training. Sometimes the gym can also feel like a chore. We enjoy it, but it can feel like a chore. So to actually have a list of things that genuinely bring you joy and picking one of those things to do every week can make such a difference in how you feel about yourself, how you feel about your life, and yeah, just those those good feels pretty much. Okay, so that is all on self-care. If you have any questions or anything like that, just hit me up with them. More than happy to answer any questions on self-care. If you didn't get the message, it's essential. So just make sure you're doing it all the time, pretty much. Finding balance. Now, this one is something that I've been playing with the idea of for a bit now, because there's this whole analogy of that we should be balancing the balls and everything should be kind of balanced, when that's not realistic. So realistically, balance doesn't mean that everything will be equal, which for some people is like mind-blowing, because it's like, well, why not? We're always told to have like the juggling balls, and that you should be juggling everything in your life. You should be able to balance school, uni, work, friends, family, yourself, like prioritizing yourself, sports. When you think about it, it's unrealistic. We cannot physically put equal amount of time into everything. So instead of looking at as balancing and putting equal time into everything, we're going to start prioritizing seasons. Okay. By prioritizing seasons, I mean, we look at all of the things that we've got going on in our life, and we actually think about, rather than making it equal, where do I need to put my energy into the most at the moment? Okay. And so some examples I've got here, I've got study season, social season, sports season, quiet season. You would have work season, or self-care season, or family season, or relationship season. By season, I just mean the thing that you're juggling, like whatever that thing is. Okay. And the reason I call it season is because season is the thing that you're in. So if you're in study season, that means at the moment, my priority is that I have all of this work to get done, all of these assessments to get done. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, put more effort into that than I would my social season, which means I might have to go out less because I need to prioritize getting my assessments done. Okay. So you can see here, in the ideal world, everything would be equal. We would be putting whatever that is, 25%, is it? Whatever it is, into this part, yeah, 25%. 25% into study season, 25% into social season, 25% into quiet season, and 25% into sports season. That is what's it called? Society tries to convince us that balance is, that we're putting 25% into everything. We're equally sharing our time amongst all of the things that we're trying to juggle. That is unrealistic. Once again, society standards are letting us down. So in a realistic world, we look at what are our things that we're juggling, what is the priority, and that is where I'm going to put my energy. So that might look like that in the peak of your assessments, at the back end of your uni semester, coming into your HSC, at the moment, you're in study season. That is your priority. You have to get that done. So you're going to be putting 50% of your time into your study season, which then might only leave, say, 10% for social, 20% for yourself. And then what's the other? What did I say already? I don't even know what I said. And then the rest for sports season. Okay. Do you get what I'm saying about seasons and how it's about not putting equal but thinking about, okay, so what am I putting most of my energy into? That's where I need to go. Are there any questions on seasons? Because this is a very new concept for a lot of people. No questions. Perfect. Obviously, your seasons are all going to look different. It's not necessarily going to be social, study, quiet, and sport. There will be relationships, there'll be friendships, there'll be different things. So it's about you working out what are the things I'm juggling, what season am I in? And your seasons don't need to be long stints. They can just be like, I have a week where 60% of my energy is going into myself. I am saying no to everything else, and I'm putting 60% into me and prioritizing myself. Or it could be, I'm ready for a blowout, so I'm going to put 60% of my energy into social events, and I'm going to see as many people as I can. Okay. It's just about balancing your seasons and putting your priorities where they need to be, or putting energy into your priority seasons. So that is it for everything I have to share with you. And now it's all up to you. Okay. You get to take and leave whatever you want to. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. If you're still trying to work out your study style and the best ways to study, I'm more than happy. Oh, that's not it. I told a lie. So sorry. I actually sent an email to you all. Whether you saw it or not, I don't know. But can you guys still see my screen? No, my screen has been paused. Hang on. Resume share. Excuse me. There we go. No, can you see that? New share, that one. Sorry, I'm so not technologically advanced. Okay, so just quickly, and then you guys are all good to go. I did send you an email. In the email, it had a diary that I have created and put all the bits and bobs together for those of you who are looking for either a different way to organize or don't have organized strategies in place. So it's called the Girl with Goals. And pretty much what I've done is I have split it up into months, weeks, and days. And I've put in a mix of life admin, organization, study or work organization, and also mindset and self-care. Okay. So for your monthly intentions, you would put the month in here. What are your goals for the month? Your priorities. So it's actually making you think, what are my priorities this month? And then if you have any tasks or appointments, when are they due? And then a habit that you're building. So that's the mindset side of it. What is something that you're actually trying to achieve at the moment? What habit? Is it that you're trying to get back into meditating? Is it that you're trying to learn how to journal more frequently? Are you trying to move your body more often? So you think of the habit that you're trying to build. Then you've got weekly intentions. It's got a weekly affirmation. So you've got to think about, what is something that I'm trying to achieve at the moment, something I'm trying to work through, putting in a weekly affirmation there just to keep yourself on check or in check with it. Then you break up your month into weeks. So it's like, okay, from my monthly intentions, my intentions for the week are, and you pull them from your month. These are my intentions, my weekly priorities. Okay, so from my month's priorities, what do I need to do this week? What tasks and appointments do I need to do this week? Then it goes into days. Every day you have to come up with something you're grateful for, because that's very important. Then I've just added in a section here where you actually get to schedule your day. So it's got, like, you click here, you can put in the time and what the thing is, and you can break your day up. Then what are your priorities for the day? Then I've broken it up into hour. So it's like, I know for some people they can just go based on whatever they need to do today. But for some people, they like to then break it into what hour. So for this hour, I'm going to focus on this. For this hour, I'm going to focus on this. And then a bit of self-care for the day. What are you focusing on for your self-care? Okay. And then I also added in some journal space. So I've given you some journal prompts. You don't have to use them, but if you're just starting out with journaling, then it's sometimes nice to have prompts. Once again, you can put it in and then you can journal. So the PDF is designed to be printed. It is like 185 pages. So make sure you go back to back with that one if you do print it. And/or I have added in text boxes so that you can just use it digitally. So that is a totally free resource for you guys. I did email it to you. You're welcome to use it or not use it. Totally up to you. I just thought I would create it. And then the other thing, I can actually stop sharing my screen now. Stop sharing. Okay. So the other thing, has that stopped sharing? Yes. Okay. So the other thing is also in the email was that I have up for you guys a 30-minute session with me where it's completely free. And I can help you work out any study habits that you'd like to build, any mindset habits that you'd like to build, anything that you would like support with. Honestly, 30 minutes, totally free. Whatever you'd like to work on, I'm all yours for those 30 minutes. In the email, there is just a link that you need to click on, and you can just drop your name, and then I'll reach out to you and we can just organize a time to catch up and chat all things life, study, school, sport. If you just need to vent, you can just vent. Totally up to you. Okay, so that is also there for you. Other than that, that is me done. So yeah, any questions, feel free just to message me. You can message me on Instagram or email me, whatever. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I really do appreciate your time, and I really hope that you found some benefit in that, and maybe you're able to study more effectively. Maybe you're able to look after yourself a little bit better, or prioritize your tasks that are due. And yeah, thank you so much. So welcome. See you.
Thanks so much, Brooke.
That's all right. Take care, guys.
Thanks, Brooke.